Welcome to the Issues of Sports. I am your co-host, Evan Makovsky, along with Rudy Rude Dog Reyes. And I guess today's issue that we're going to discuss is kind of crafting your legacy and how it's a complete picture. And the two situations, I don't know if you want to call it situations, one person passing away, which is going to happen to most human beings, if not all. But last Sunday on Mother's Day, Ja Morant, a video on Instagram emerged in which his friend launched it, a Instagram Live, I believe. And this is the second incident because Ja filmed himself in a club holding a firearm just 2 months prior while in Denver. So that went on social media, and a lot of the week was spent talking about if Ja is going to get what his suspension will be. How could he do this 2 months later? You know, we'll get into that. We're not going to unpack everything here, but Ja Morant has now compromised his legacy already. It's his fourth year in the NBA, and now he's got two of these major incidents for a business that markets to children. And then just on Thursday evening, and it was announced on Friday by his wife, Monique, Jim Brown passed away at 87 years old, maybe the greatest lacrosse player ever, the greatest football player ever. I mean, really a man amongst boys, like LeBron before LeBron. Just think of him on the lacrosse field, just people in the 50s, 60s, people just bouncing off of him. He has such incredible strength, and he's a civil rights activist as well. And I can say from personal experience, I have his number in my phone. When I was in St. Louis doing sports radio, I interviewed him. I don't want to say regularly, but 5 to 10 times. He was nothing but classy. But at the same time, there's been domestic violence type allegations against him, and not just one. There's been, and he also went to jail in 1999. His wife called the cops, and we're not here to unpack each one, but it still clouds, and now it's part of the story that Jim Brown, he was all these things, and he's given quotes about how it's not against women, he says, but he's acknowledged an anger problem. And just, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of this between Ja and Jim Brown and that complicated story that, people are trying to sift through what they can accept, what they're comfortable with, what's crossing the line. This person didn't break the law. This person allegedly broke the law, but there were cases that were, dropped or this or that. So I just thought that, a quick hitting podcast here on kind of, that legacy is more than just your on-field performance, and Jim Brown's legacy for being a civil rights activist gets elevated, but also for these allegations, and it's going to be clouded. So I'll let you take it from there, Rude Dog.
Well, there's a lot of things to really like about Jim Brown, and I'm going to start with all the great things. Every time they were in a championship game or near championship game, he was voted the MVP every single time. So his accolades on the football field, yeah, you can attribute that to his outstanding lacrosse playing and his ability to get in and out of traffic. I mean, it was something that most people can't even touch in regards to athleticism and the types of ways that he actually did it. Being an Orangeman certainly meant a lot more back in the day than obviously it does now, with a wider audience, a wider NCAA landscape, and all the things that go with that.
By the way, just because I'm Syracuse, there have been great, but yes, McNabb, Marvin Harrison, but going back, Jim Brown went to Syracuse, and yes,
he set the tone.
Yeah, he said that
He
he's
set the
number one.
tone. He
Yeah,
really did.
Larry Zonko went to Syracuse.
Larry Zonka, he sure did. Absolutely.
Art Monk, who's in the Hall of Fame, went to Syracuse. So Syracuse was put out for like a spotty, not always great football program. But they
True.
put
But
out
what you can
certainly great,
do,
Dwight Freeney's another person
Joey
that's up
Freeney,
for
yeah,
the Hall of Fame. But
sure.
continue. Anyway, you were saying you were taking it about Brown at Syracuse.
Well, I mean, he had done so much while there. I mean, a multi-sport athlete. He just played at such an elite level in every single thing that he touched, grabbed on the field. I'm shocking that he didn't take up basketball to the extent where he could have. I mean, sure, he dabbled in it and played a little bit, but there's so many things to like about him and his play and what he did on the field. But off the field, there hadn't been any early instances of him, battering women and the accusations that unfolded thereafter. And of course, when you reach a certain pinnacle of superstardom, as he did, of course, back in the day, those kind of monies in the 1960s weren't exactly fabulous. I mean, you look at rock bands of the 1960s, their contracts were only like $200,000, which is a pittance compared to what athletes get paid nowadays, and rock bands get paid as well. However, in 68, the latter part of the 60s, he was booked on suspicion of assault. Again, suspicion. Everything's been relatively dropped or unproven, or women have recanted their
Yeah,
stories.
okay, so maybe women, and I'm not getting into speculation. I have no idea, so I don't want to be like, oh, but
We weren't even
some
there.
of the implications are that women dropped the charges like they were made, like not like, I mean, I could say like the mafia maybe got to them, or like they realized they're going up. He was already, when he was accused of throwing the woman in Hollywood off the balcony, he was living in LA. He had just retired, because he retired at age 30, if not 29. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but either way, he played, he retired and then he moved to LA to be an actor. And he was accused of, he had a model 22-year-old girlfriend and the police found her semi-conscious and they found blood, but I don't know if he pushed her or whatever he did off of a 20-foot balcony. And that's a full accusation. He was accused of basically attempted murder. And
right. Against
I'm
Eva
just
Marie
saying, and
Chen.
she's saying she fell. Okay.
Right.
His wife, Monique, in 1999 called the police and begged the police, according to the Cleveland Times Dealer, or Cleveland Plain Dealer rather, article, that his wife called the police and then basically walked back, begged them not to arrest him, walked back. I am not there. I have no idea what happened. I'm just saying, so without getting fully too into unpacking each thing, but he does have throwing a woman off a balcony is
He has a tendency.
a violent act. So, and he's acknowledged anger, but he says it's not, he never acknowledged that it's towards women. Yet there was another thing where he was in a golf match about ball placement, and he supposedly just literally assaulted the guy that he was playing with. And see, that's where, like, again, I wasn't there, but he got legally charged or whatever. But Jim Brown is one of the strongest human beings on the planet. Okay, so him beating somebody up is not the same. I mean, you're a bigger guy than me, but I mean, I know it's not always about size, but Jim Brown is stronger than 99% of humans. Watch his NFL. It's incredible the way that he drags defenders, and I'm just saying he's got to know, and that's what he can't get.
I don't know that he was pegged to be the monster that a lot of people actually put him out to be. I believe that based on his physicality, based on his stature, based on the fact he went to be an actor in Los Angeles, still a very imposing figure on and off the field. And of course, as we get older, we all recognize that we weren't the same people that we were at 20 years of age, 25 years of age. A lot of things have changed.
His though
He
went
changed
on,
along with the times as well.
But his went on though, where he had, I believe, I don't have the rap sheet in front of me, but problems in the 60s. I have to check if it was the 70s, definitely the 80s and the 90s. So he had problems along the lines with violence. And then he served 4 months in prison because he didn't want to do the community service that the judge, he was sentenced to 6 in 1999 for the incident um, with his wife. Look, all I'm saying is that this is part of the conversation, nothing more. I
It's
still
part of
think
the
he's the best.
issue. And
Yeah, he's part of the best. I said he can be all those things, and I don't, I'm saying that, but it happens to men in their 30s, and I don't know this to be a fact, but I have heard. So I want to just say that you don't fact check this, but that like that's the number one population for mental illness to like be diagnosed or come out. So he started
it's
getting,
possible.
yeah,
Yeah, it's certainly possible. It's certainly plausible. I mean, you look at the early onset of CTE recently.
yeah.
Merrill Hodge and Jerome Bettis had stated that they would give up their brains for science so that way they could be studied, which is I don't even know what to say to that. That's just
I don't
unbelievable.
think Jim Brown will do it because he will look
He
at it
didn't.
if his family will look at it as it's basically it's trying to explain his anger and
And
then
his behavioral
right,
issues, things
right,
of that
and
nature. We can
so
talk
he
about
had,
Antonio Brown. We can, there's so many other players that have played sports in a reckless demeanor. And I don't mean necessarily on the field recklessly, but within their respective positions played recklessly. However, a lot of the things that I've seen from Jim Brown, I mean, he did have some violence counseling. He had sort of some community service and things of that nature. But of course he refused to do all of that, and instead of serving 6 months, he served 4. So again, those are all the bad things. The good things I don't know if that they necessarily offset those bad negative run-ins. He was never formally charged with any of them, either because of women had recanted, as I had stated earlier, or they just said, well,
no,
potato potato, maybe I was
he had
overreacting.
trials in 99. He was also for his terrorist threat, I guess, don't take it like world terrorists think like what does a terrorist do? They inflict terror. So he got charged with a terrorist threat in the wife incident, and he also got charged with like I don't know if he smashed her car or what he did with the chair. Exactly. This is all according to reports. So, but the terrorist charge didn't stick, but the vandalism charge did, and that's why he didn't want to do the community service and the whatever. But he acknowledged that he's got smashing somebody's car is definitely an advanced act of rage. I'm not saying that. I'm not sitting here to compare, and I'm also not comparing what happened with John Morant to what happened with Jim Brown, because they're totally different incidents and whatever, and one person's still playing. The point is that your legacy, the whole body of work, like John Morant is affecting his legacy, and maybe he could pull a lesson here from Jim Brown, who it wasn't his play is not in dispute, and he basically he was part of the sports community for the most of his life, giving interviews, speaking out on causes, doing a lot of good in the world. So I all I'm saying is it's in the New York Times subheading under the headline that Brown is known for accused of abuse towards women, and
Well,
so
the
it's just
problem is that this is a huge generational gap. Asking John Morant to go back and actually look at Jim Brown, not that the letter J has anything to do with it unless you're on Sesame Street, but the fact alone that he did not have this connection with him, you have to understand someone's background. I mean, in its totality. John Morant is trending in a very negative direction. No, they didn't have IG, they didn't have Instagram back then, they didn't have social media back in the 60s. They had press, and they stated that it's better to have some press than no press at all. Well, this is bad press. Bad press for Jim Brown. It's bad press for John Morant. This is a self-inflicted wound.
yeah.
And I'm going to say a blanket statement here. For whatever reason, and I'm not going to call out this broadcaster's name by any means, but he was extremely insensitive and trying to compare apples and oranges on a very large platform, stating that the lack of gun control has to do with Ja Morant's activities, which is completely fouled. It's irreprehensible to even equate those two. And secondly, it's just moronic that you believe that your soapbox is big enough to have the conversation and put those comparisons to everyone who's watching. Shame on you.
Well, what ticked me off about the, I think, same commentary was he said, basically it's no big deal, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting. It's no big deal to, and I'm interpreting as well. It's no big deal that Ja Morant is not breaking the law, waving a gun on social media because there are mass shootings and we don't even care about mass shootings. That's not true. And that actually upset me. Like, I went to the Columbine. I lived in Colorado in 98 to 2000, and Columbine in 99. The first one was in Littleton, 25 miles south of Denver. I went to the memorial. Eric Harris, Dylan Klebold, I remember their name. I went to, when I lived in California in 2015, to the Isla Vista UCSB shooting memorial as well. I don't think that this person, whose name I almost said, who said that, is realizes, I think he means like we can't stop it, which is true. I don't know how to stop it, which is a whole other conversation I don't want to tangent into, but that doesn't mean we don't care about it. Like, and like, you can, Aurora, Colorado, and those are the big ones. There are small ones. It's a major problem, and why he's comparing that. And that doesn't, because we can't stop that from happening, is nothing to do with Ja Morant level of, like, it's not a big deal. We can't stop, like, we don't care about, mass shootings. So we don't care about a 23-year-old waving a gun on social media.
Well, bringing it back down to earth for half a second, in that Ja Morant, no, he didn't get busted. There was no law broken. Okay, fine. We all understand that. We know that. We get it. However, the NBA has a clause for social media responsibility. And Ja Morant not only broke it once, but he broke it twice. Having a conversation initially with Adam Silver, it was, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll do whatever you say, sir. Whatever I need to do, sir. And in turn, slaps Adam Silver 100 miles per hour in a one-way slapping contest, and goes on and does it again.
Yeah,
for the second time. Like, that's irreprehensible.
He shoved it up Adam Silver's. You know what he did? Well, he said, Adam Silver was kind of like doing him a favor, out the door. Don't screw me over, please. That's all I asked. To just take this one bullet. Oh, that's the wrong analogy, I should say.
Take one for the team.
Just take one for everybody.
That's right.
Excuse me, I guess. But people still use that in jargon and speak. But please take this, and then just don't screw me over, and this will blow over, and it'll be minor. Now it's not minor, and I think, we can wrap up here, but Adam Silver will suspend him for half a season, and I think he's going to say to him, though, you got one more incident of this nature, and you're going to be out of the NBA, which is a job. It's an employment. It's not, this is nothing you did. Just like most people's boss can fire them for any reason, the NBA, on top of the fact, as Rude Dog mentioned, there's a morality clause in the, which I'm sure gives the NBA plenty of latitude on what's moral, like where they're the judge on what. So Ja Morant would be a loss. He is a loss. He's a great player. He's an all-star. He's, biggest high flyer in the league. He's exciting. He seems like a good guy. Hopefully this is just him. I hope he turns it around, because maybe it's not like, we
said that the first time around. And Ja Morant went ahead and did it.
So, but he's on note, so he's not going to get booted out for good this time. But he has a chance now to really, not ruin his career. I mean, I'm sure he's already cast. It doesn't matter. He makes funny money, but he already has it. But he gets suspended for 41 games. you know, forgive me if I'm wrong. That might be, it probably is, you know, somewhere in the 8-figure zip code or whatever.
It
10
could
million.
be,
That's
but
under
you know who's
200
taking
million.
money out of his pocket is Nike. Nike
Right.
decided, and there's a report out there. Nike has decided to make themselves heard. They're going to make a very firm stance here, and they've pulled, except for the current retailers that have his shoe already there, have decided to pull his shoe deal temporarily, which is the right thing to do because kids, you know, as you
Well,
stated from the onset of the
would you
show,
buy your kid a John Morant shoe right now? No,
absolutely
because
not. And to
you're,
be quite honest with you, the only
he's,
pair of shoes I would give them is probably Jordan's because he wasn't caught waving a gun. And obviously for all the wrong reasons, is John Morant in the news here. He's done nothing right whatsoever. And we don't even want to go down that road in
no,
regards to Dylan
yeah,
Brooks and poking the bear in the Lakers series. But the fact alone that John Morant still has not learned from what is self-inflicted is what has it should have and will continue to
yes,
have others in an upheaval, wondering
correct.
what's really going on here, and is there going to be a solution to John Morant's issue? Now, you had stated earlier that 40 games, I would say 40 games minimum. I would also say a
41,
penalty, maybe even 41 for all that's concerned,
half the season.
half the season. But
Yeah.
on top of that, fine him, make him pay restitution, and force him to go to counseling on a regular basis with reports that are accountable by that counseling body, whoever that may be. That's the only way that I foresee John Morant, A, learning his lesson, B, recognizing that he just simply can't do this and believe he's going to get away with it. And then thirdly, the NBA and Adam Silver will be satisfied, hopefully, that if for some reason the Memphis Grizzlies get booted again from another postseason run, that John Morant won't pull this type of idiocy and on social media for all to watch.
I mean, I would, you would hope, unless he's got, you know, some sort of that he never, you never know. But I hope that he turns this around. I think that the moral of today's episode is kind of everything affects your legacy, and in turn with your legacy comes accountability. And for better or worse, Jim Brown has wonderful qualities about him. He was an athletic marvel in the history of sports, okay? At multiple sports. He's considered the best football player, the best lacrosse player. He just was super strong, just super dominant. He was just ahead of his time. But as he's passed away at 87 years old, on top of being a civil rights leader, on top of living mostly, I believe he was, you know, trying. And like I said, I always had good personal dealings with him, but that doesn't mean very much. But, you know, with his passing, there is talk in, you know, different articles, including Cleveland, including the New York Times, about accusations of violence against women. And that's just part of his legacy, and kind of he's being held accountable for it, even in his passing. And John Morant now is going to have to go back into Adam Silver's office. And I mean, I do at least like his statement. Like, words don't mean much, because I mean, you know, now Adam Silver, it's like, right, Adam Silver, that's where you said to me he could get a season, and it's possible. I don't think he will. But if Adam Silver, just because if he pulled back on time one, he could over punish him here on time two to make a point that you screwed me over. But I think it will still be half a season. But what are you going to say to Adam Silver? I mean, and that's why I don't buy that. Oh, he's just 23. He's shaping his legacy, and he's kind of ruining. He's got a good thing going. You mentioned he's already had Nike's made a move already to at least pause. He's already killed. Like we're saying, if you're a parent right now, you really, even if you're not even that bothered, you really can't buy your kid John Morant's shoe. So he's hurt himself already. So it's whether he's going to ruin his career. Because like I said, I think Silver's going to say to him one more time, this is going to be for life, and it's not going to be negotiable. It's just going to be automatic. I think
Yeah,
that he's going
it
to
should be the
get
three strikes, you're out
you're out. Yeah, and I
situation.
write that.
Using the baseball
So
analogy.
he should know, like you said, this is self-inflicted. That yes, this was his buddy who was banned by the Grizzlies from attending home games because he got into a confrontation of sorts with Indiana Pacers staff, and the Pacers obviously complained to the league, and he got banned. But he went on Instagram live here before it was Ja doing it in Denver, so doing it on his Instagram. So I mean, this is not, as Stephen A. credit him said, this is not a TMZ reporter like hunting him down, but he has a right to help. Ja can still get there. He can still turn it around, but he is now teetering on ruining his legacy, and he's going to be accountable.
Well, the biggest question is we have to ask is, what do you want your legacy to be? For all those viewers, everybody is watching right now, what do you want your legacy to be? Do you want to be known for the one who can't control yourself in social media, who makes the wrong decisions, not once, but twice, and then maybe a third time you don't have the ability for any recourse whatsoever? I mean, what do you expect to happen when you continually do the same thing over and over again? The same result? An expansive results.
That's a definition of insanity. And so is keeping this podcast going. So legacy matters. And it kind of, at the end, we're all going to, or during, we're going to be held accountable. So, just some things to think about as we discuss here on the issues of sports. So for Rudy Rude Dog Reyes, I am Evan Emac Makovsky, and we will see you right here on the Issues of Sports on the next episode.